Hi everyone. Okay, let's start off with your privacy. If you look at every company, they have a privacy statement, eh?
Oh, hang on 1 second, please, Nelson.
Yep.
If we made, you don't mind if I call you Nelson, do you?
My corporate, my body corporate, when we're doing business in the public, yeah. But when we're talking privately, it's the Crown, unless you want to take jurisdiction.
I don't get all technical.
Either way, I'm quite happy, you know. It's just depends who you're talking to at the time. When we're talking amongst ourselves, we're that name, but when we're talking to the system, we got to talk as the Crown, directing that name.
Okay, I think that we'll stay with Crown.
Yeah.
How about that? So
okay.
Daniel had a question about the role of the Commonwealth public official. So how does that relate to what we're doing here, and what's your thoughts on that?
Okay. If you look at everything within the body politic, the body corporate, they're all acting out different functions of the body. At the head is always going to be the Crown.
Yeah.
So the Crown, acting through whatever act, has different agencies in between the Crown and his body corporate to direct the public agencies.
Mm-hmm.
Government is only a service provider.
So if you were to be a Commonwealth public official, is that a position that's more filled sort of by a person?
Well, the name of the person is the body politic that's operating within the body, whether they realize that they're the Crown or not, but they're just an employee.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll give you an example.
So would Crown would be a superior position to a Commonwealth public official?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh, yes.
That's what I was trying to get to.
He's the head of state.
Yeah.
They're administrating the body.
Okay, so in this instance, you would be saying, why take an inferior position to the one that you're already in as Crown?
If I show, I'll demonstrate that in a act how that operates. Yep. Okay, and whether it's local government or any of those agencies, or even a company, they have to have a privacy policy. Is that correct? Under the Privacy Act?
Yes.
Because it's all about your privacy. Your information is your private information. And that's what they're sharing, whether it's local government, the tax man, right across the board, sharing your personal information. And in the Birth, Death and Marriages Registration Act, they call them approved information sharing agreements and information sharing agreements. That tells me that some are approved and some are not. Right across the board, they got to have a privacy policy. Mm-hmm. Now let's go and see how we utilize that privacy policy under the Privacy Act 1988. And that's a Commonwealth one that overrides all the states, all the acts within all the states. So if I can share the screen, and this is a good exercise too, to show you where your rights are and your protections are.
Okay, that you should be able to share your screen now, Crown.
Okay. And if someone could take, well, this is going to be recorded, just take a note of all the links that I'm going to share so you can follow it through on a later date. Okay. I'll just make, stop. Go share. Okay. So can everyone see?
Western Australian Current Acts.
Okay, I'll just go back to the beginning here. Okay. So everyone's trying to protect themselves. So we have a private and public partnership. The Crown is private, acting through its body corporate, which is the public. So everything is governed by the Privacy Act. And when we go into the Privacy Act, first thing you want to put in is Crown. If you go into any act, put Crown in the search inside the act. And that will establish where you are and gives you all the pros and cons of what's available in the act. See, they're quoting sections in the act that's adversely affecting you, but because you don't know how to navigate the act itself, you can't see the protections to counteract what they are claiming against you. It's like a double-edged sword, but the Crown cuts right through every act. So let's have a look at the Privacy Act. And this will be same with the Local Government Act as well. Put the Crown in there, then you'll see what's available, the pros and cons. It's like walking through the valley of death. You got to open up the path, put the Crown in. That'll show you, that'll lead you through the valley of death in regards to legislation.
So when we're looking at this legislation, Crown, is it quite often that you find that the things that they're trying to damage you with aren't actually binding on the Crown, and they're looking for you to contract with that?
Correct. See, there are acts that are binding on the Crown and they have to provide remedy, and acts that are not binding on the Crown that are of no effect and unenforceable. So we're looking at the Privacy Act. Let's look at the Privacy Act as your armor. You know, they talk in the Bible about the armor of God, you know, the helmet, the shield, the breastplate, the shoes, and the sword.
Mm-hmm.
It's called the Privacy Act. You know, it's short for Privy Council. Here's your Privy Council. You can exercise it yourself, anywhere, at any time, if you know how to use it. So let's have a look at the Crown's position in the Privacy Act. Act to bind the Crown. Well, that's got to be good, because if it's binding on Nelson Painter or any other entity, well, it's not binding on the Crown. See, if it's binding on the Crown, then they must assume that you are the Crown. The Act's saying it's binding on you. The Local Government Act is binding on the Crown. You must be the Crown. But we're going in under the wrong status and copying the liabilities. So this act to bind the Crown. This act binds the Crown in right of the Commonwealth. There's your Commonwealth. See the agencies in this script here. This is how you address every organisation that's operating within this act. So this act binds the Crown in right of the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth is all those birth certificates. That's the Commonwealth of each of the states. How many states are there? All of the Australian Capital Territory and of the Northern Territory. 2, nothing in this act renders the Crown and right of the Commonwealth or a state of the Australian Capital Territory or the Northern Territories liable to be prosecuted for an offence. Are we getting the drift here now?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing in this act shall be taken to have effect of making the Crown and right of a state of the Australian Capital Territory or any of the Northern Territory an agency for the purpose of this act. So can you see how the Crown is acting through all these agencies?
Yeah.
That's the language, and that's how you have to address these organisations. There's a chain of command. Do you see it?
Yeah.
So when you're addressing whoever's at the tail end of this correspondence agency, You got to command them through these chain of command.
Okay, so now it would be right that when you're communicating with these agencies, that you must remember that you are in the superior position, not the subordinate position. So it's not a matter of asking them, it's a matter of instructing them.
And this is how you instruct them.
Mm-hmm.
So any correspondence to any agency, you've got to have this. There's your authority from the beginning, at the top of the letter. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So Privacy Act 1988, put the Crown on there first of all, then it gives you your authority. Okay, so I'll just go back, and there's only one section, the other section is about notes. Okay, now I'll just go to another link in regards to the Privacy Act 1988, and in the search, you put protection. The Privacy Act is there to protect you. You've stated your authority. Now here's your protections. Protection from civil action. This is a good exercise to get into, everyone, when you're dealing with any of those agencies, but you've got to go to the act that they're operating under. Now I've gone to the Privacy Act because that's the umbrella over all the legislation. They're all subject to the Privacy Act. So here's a list of all the references in the Act in relation to protection. You've already seen the Crown is already protected. Now you've got to back up with some more sections. You see what's going on? Oh, here we go. Protection from civil action. When they're sending you out those rate bills, and are they not civil actions? Civil proceedings. They've already, when they send out the rates demand, they've already made it a proceedings. You know, in the local government, they have a court, eh? Anyone been in local government? They have their own court. That's why they can send out infringements, isn't it correct? So they already had a civil proceedings. Protection from civil action. Civil proceedings do not lie against a person. Now, did you see that the Crown is operating for all those agencies, and he has a person? He's at the end of that arm of that chain of command. There's your person. The Crown is controlling his person. Here he is here. Civil proceedings do not lie against a person in respect of loss, damage, or injury of any kind suffered. Now, don't get fooled by that word suffered. If you look at the etymology of the word suffrage, it means allow. Never use that word in any conversation. By another person because of any of the following acts done in good faith. The making of a complaint under this act, the making. So every time you're going to engage any of these agencies, it's a complaint.
Mm-hmm.
What are you complaining about? So that's the instructions, eh?
And so by making a complaint, that's sort of a shield for you as well.
You're making a complaint under the Privacy Act. Make the complaint before it even happens.
Yeah.
You know, everything that's happening to you now is a breach of your privacy.
So in relation to that, would a demand for rates payment from a council could fit into that as an invasion of your privacy?
Well, I just had a quick look on look at the Local Government Act, and there's so many links to the New Zealand Local Government Act. It's not funny.
Mm-hmm.
So over here we've got the Local Government Act 1993 and the Local Government Rating Act 1993, and it's intermingled with your local government acts. Why is that? Because that blueprint for local government was initiated in New Zealand. That's why it's connected to Australia, and we're sharing the same blueprint.
Mm-hmm.
So, so when you go into the act, put Crown in first. In the search in this act. For example, in this one, put protection in. You want to see what protection is available right there. So it gives you all the options on protection.
I see one there, for example, Crown, with what you're talking about, I see medical research guidelines.
You'll see they've introduced the COVID in there.
Yes.
And that's what they'll be using against you, but you want to see what's available to yourself.
Yes.
If you look at everything that they present you, they're using a section out of the act.
Mm-hmm.
You're fighting against that section that they're using, failing to realise that you've got all these other sections that you can use.
And also, because you're not in your role as Crown.
Aye. They're making a claim against the person, but the person is your body corporate that the Crown is directing through that chain of command under this act binds the Crown.
So would it be for some people to think about it when they're thinking about Crown, would it be appropriate if they were to think of Crown like their soul?
Their head on their body, the body corporate.
Yeah.
The government is providing all the functions of your body.
Mm-hmm.
And because you've taken on the identity of the body itself, the dead body, the body corporate, you've become an employee to that body politic,
yeah,
body corporate.
Well, just to share how, with what you're talking about, how it occurs to me as a Crown, and it's a little bit different, but to me, I'm a pilot of this skin suit, but this isn't me, but the Crown resides outside, above, whatever, as the soul sort of thing. So they're trying to imprison my spirit by taking hold of the body that the spirit interacts through.
When we look at some other acts there, what's happened is that in the Land Transfer Act 2017 and the Companies Act, it talks about the Crown disclaiming the estate.
Mm-hmm. The
estate being represented by the body corporate, which is our inheritance, and it's an estate and inheritance. We've disclaimed the estate by using the name of the person. And when we realize that we are the Crown and we're directing the body, your body, which the government is using to provide all these goods and services and all these functions within the body, some of those services you don't want. But you can only talk to the body through these legislation.
Yeah, and so the crown is actually bringing life to that body so it can achieve something. Otherwise, it's a dead thing that's directed by others.
It's got no head.
Yes.
It's over there somewhere.
Yep.
Which represents our Crown, and we're operating from a dead body under administration.
Yeah.
So to get that relationship in order, the Crown has to reconnect with the Commonwealth through that territory, that state, that agency, which is operating and administrating the body corporate.
Mm-hmm.
So two parts. Yeah. I can show you some examples of that. If I go out, and this relationship has been going on for a long time, and I'll show you. Here we go. If I just step out and then come back in, and here we go. Now this relationship, this is about, here we go. Treaties on tenure. We're talking about estates, different types of estates. And here we are. Breakdown of different divisions of possession of property.
Was that 1864?
This one here 1841.
1841, thank you.
Yeah,
I just think it's important sometimes that people realise that this isn't a new thing.
it's not a new thing. It's been going on for a really long time. So in here, they talk about the remitter. You know, you get a remittance form on the bottom of the tax invoice. Is it a remitter? Have you ever heard the judge use some remit in the court?
Mm-hmm.
Well, in legislation, the remitter has been replaced by the charge holder. So if you're looking for a remitter in legislation, look for charge holder. So the remitter refers to this. I'll bring it down. Here we are. Remitter is an ancient term in the law and is where a man has two titles to land or tenements. See, that's that split title, the crown and the sovereign, split title. A man is born with two titles, one to the crown and one to the land that he was born in. So they created two titles. It's all for banking. You know, go back to King Solomon's the two pillars. That's the banking code, split titles. A man has two titles to land or tenements. One, a more ancient, elder title, and the other, a latter title. And he cometh to the land by the latter title. So when we talk about that, we're talking about the fetus and the placenta.
Yeah, so he'll be, will be adjudged by the force of the elder title, which is the placenta.
There we go. This is what we're dealing with. So you can see that relationship in every act. The crown is the elder because he came out of the womb first, and the latter is the placenta that they've used to create the title to land.
Okay, so it's not the one that came into being first, where the placenta comes into being first, but it's the one that enters the world first, if you like.
Enters the world first, yes. We were born in the womb, but when we're birthed, that's when we come into the world. Mm-hmm. That's where the relationship changes.
Okay.
So the elder being the first in time, elder, first in time, and the latter, one that came after. It's like an old model or new model vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
Those will be first, will be last, and those will be last, shall be first. So that's the relationship that's happening that people don't realize. They got an old elder title, which is crown, and a latter title, which is an estate and fee simple. That's why you got all these estates and fee simple granted by the crown. That's the relationship. This one here has been hidden. The crown has been hidden. One cannot operate without the other.
Excuse me, Crown, but I noticed somebody's just asked that and said that you mean the fetus, not the placenta, right? And I think the answer is no.
During the crown birthing, the fetus came out first. He's first in time, or the elder.
Mm-hmm.
First in time, but he's older.
Yes.
It's a bit of an oxymoron. It's hard to get your head around. He's the oldest, but he was the first in time.
Yeah. No, well, he's the first one to enter the world. The placenta follows, so the placenta is younger.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, but initially, this is what I was thinking. Initially, because in conception, the placenta is being in place, sort of arguably first.
So now, if you imagine amalgamating all that together and they're operating under the crown, this act binds the crown, which represents everyone, the crown, and then all those derivatives that the crown is operating through the name on the birth certificate. A man is born with two titles. So when you see the act binds the crown, and through acting through all those derivatives down to the person who's been affected in the act, that's how you've got to address every agency, because your person is the agency. So in your communications, you've got to establish that chain of, you've got to establish your jurisdiction, your authority.
Yeah. Now, somebody's just said, and I thought this would come up, but I'll let it come up from this way, that the zygote is first, then comes the placenta. Now, what I was going to suggest is the reason why I say the placenta is because it's the first one that has a pulse. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's under the Perpetuities Act. If you look up the word inventory summarily means that we're born in the womb. We're actually born in the womb.
Yes.
Then we're birthed. So we spend 9 months in the womb. The placenta is the first to grow, and that's connected to the minerals in the land. That's our connection to the land.
Yeah.
The fetus grows inside the placenta. The roles change at birth. In the womb, that's the relationship.
Okay, so do we consider then that, for argument's sake, is the zygote living or not before the placenta?
The placenta is a living entity in its own right. The doctors call it a phantom twin. So the placenta has its own heartbeat while it's feeding and growing the fetus inside it. So there's your admiralty and your land jurisdiction.
Okay. Now what I'm going to do here, I'm going to give you a break this way, and I'm going to throw you in the fire another way.
Okay.
So I've got Joe. I'll just pick her up. And I know people have got questions there, but this is right on what we're talking about. So, Joe, I'm asking you to unmute. And what you've just been saying in the chat, would you mind speaking that?
Not at all. So, I'm Sue, by the way. But Joe here, my friend. That's okay. You wouldn't know that. So I'm a midwife, and when the egg is fertilized by the sperm in the ovary, it travels down the fallopian tube, goes into the womb and implants as a zygote.
Yep.
Then the zygote grows and multiplies, and eventually the placenta is formed off the zygote and implants itself so that it can supply the fetus blood and nutrients so it can continue to grow. The heart is fully formed by 8 weeks.
Yep.
The heart is the first, other than the placenta, the heart is the first organ to be fully developed.
Sounds like they got a contract going on there somehow. They're joined together by the. So imagine that all of this, the whole system and all this legislation is operating off that relationship. A man is born with 2 titles.
Yeah.
Representing the banking code back to King Solomon. Remember, the 2 mothers came to King Solomon to make a judgment, and he says, cut the child in half. Remember that?
Yeah.
This is what we're talking about, the split title. The fee head and the fee tail. The fee tail is the estate in fee simple of land held by the crown, which is the elder and the younger. And on the New Zealand printout, you'll see in relation to the stillborn that it asks the question. It says Christian or first names only. If twins, state whether elder or younger. If stillborn, to be noted in this column. This is how they created the split title and 2 different entities. But the doctor, as a midwife, what actually occurs during the crown birthing and how many times is that event being referred to as the crown? The crown is crowning. How many times during a birth ritual would the crown be used? 3 times? 3 proclamations. The doctor is the judge, is he not? That's why you have a coroner's court. There was a judgment made. When you go in for examination, it's like you're going into court. You have a receptionist, that's the registrar. You have a registry. See, the first point of contact in this agreement was when the mummy came in, believing she was pregnant, and first test, a blood test and a scan to determine the point of conception. What people don't realize is that there's a life insurance contract taken out on the contingency that there's going to be a death, and it's guaranteed. All of this legislation, all of this whole system was put together while you're still in the womb. Admiralty, land jurisdiction, and common law, because you were joined together for 9 months in a contract. And you'll see that loud and clear in the Health Sector Transfer Act 1993 in New Zealand in relation to every agreement. Before it's even gone onto a piece of paper, before you even spoke a word, there was already a blueprint for every agreement. So while you're having, while that relationship is going on in the womb, they're already contracted. There's legislation to bind you while you're in the womb, before you even pop out. So this is how deep it goes, and we're trying to manifest that in the world now. So if you can see that, yes, you were the crown. See, when the parents filled in the birth registration form, there's a question asked whether there was a multiple birth. People discard that the placenta is an entity. So they didn't provide particulars of the multiple birth. The doctor said, oh, here's the crown. And then there was a name given to the other entity, which we've given the name to the other entity, but we forgot that, oh, the child is the crown.
Yeah. So I listened to an interview today, Crown, of yourself and Russ Mirror, which I thought was very good, and a lot of that information is there. And I noticed Russ is in the room. She's been very quiet. Thank you. But what I wanted to do, I said that was it's very long, but it's all very pertinent. It's very good. And hopefully we can provide a link through the website to that interview, because it was done very well, I felt. Now, in the meantime, I'm just going to sort of break things up a little bit. And this is just to connect back with the people in the room. I've got Ivan asking a question, but also somebody else had their hand up, and I went to admit somebody to the room and my screen jumped, and I accidentally lowered their hand, and I didn't mean to. So whoever that is, if you wouldn't mind raising your hand again, I didn't mean to put your hand down. Ivan, if you want to unmute.
Hi, Stephen. Hi, guys. Listen, my question's got nothing to do with all the crown stuff. It's more about what we discussed the other night. So
okay, well,
maybe that's for another time.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Now, if there's anybody else that did have a question beforehand relating to what Crown's talking about, there you go. Daniel. Go ahead, Daniel.
I'm interested, as the Crown, in different circumstances, like engaging police or courts, you know, there's different ways. Say police, because most of us know how to engage them as a man and a woman. But how do you engage to establish your authority as the Crown? How do you language that? And would they even know what you're talking about?
You got to direct them to the Act. You know, they're operating under Act.
Now, is that the Privacy Act?
the police will be operating under its own act, yeah? But if Crown is a private person, so all the Crown's rights and protections are in the Privacy Act. And they're bound by the Privacy Act too. Even though they're operating under their own act, start with the privacy and then go into their act and see the position of the Crown. And the Policing Act in New Zealand, it states clearly that the police are an instrument of the Crown.
So would it be wise to perhaps in your dialogue to advise them, remind them, whatever, that they are an instrument of the Crown and that you are Crown? And then what's now people have asked me about the wording when you're talking about an information privacy request.
Yes.
And then people say, shouldn't that be in a different order or whatever? Now, sometimes when we have multiple languages, people can put words in different orders. Does the order specifically matter?
Well, that's why I'm introducing everyone to the Privacy Act, to show everyone the order of what's available for them.
Yeah, with the question that you asked me, is this an information privacy request under the Privacy Act 1988?
Yeah.
Because you're very specific about the order of words, but I'm just wondering, does it matter if you have the order of words slightly different?
No, they're very specific. Example here, interference with privacy. Is this an interference with privacy? See? Section 13, they're interfering with your privacy. So you're asking them, is this an interference with privacy, to activate that section? Yeah? Yep. Very specific. Otherwise, they can't hear you.
Okay.
See, the breaches of statute are directed by statute. That's why we've got to use the law and operate within the law to be able to protect ourselves.
Yes.
Otherwise, if you're acting outside the law, you're an outlaw.
So one could say too that often people, you hear the saying that the law has to be applied.
Pitch the law against the law.
Yes.
See, they're using it against you, but they provide the remedies to protect yourself. But because people, how many people have actually looked at an act?
Mm-hmm.
This is the problem.
Yeah.
And
next question.
Using information that has been regurgitated probably over the years, over hundreds of years, that don't actually work. That's out of date and irrelevant for the now time.
Yes.
This is what's irrelevant now.
Okay. Now, I'm going to bring in a relevant question right now from Mark. If he'll unmute himself. There you go, Mark.
Yeah, okay. I've got yeah. How you going again? I just got a question. When you go into court, and they refer to the prosecutor as Madam Crown or Mr. Crown or whatever it may be, why are they referring to the prosecutor as Crown specifically? Can we answer that question?
Yes. Okay. Because we have disclaimed the estate as the Crown, they have taken on the role as the Minister of the Crown, the Administrator of the Crown, and they have a Crown Law Office. In the Health Sector Transfer Act 1993 in New Zealand, because the Crown has disclaimed the estate by using the name, it's the, over there it's the Attorney General. Attorney General. Oh, over here it's the Attorney General that has claimed the estate. The Attorney General holds the power of attorney because the Crown has disclaimed it. So he's taken the property and it's been held in the Treasury as bona vacantia, which is ownerless property that's vested in the sovereign, which is your body corporate in the name, but owned by the Crown.
So would it be right to say that the Crown is always in the courtroom, and if you don't claim it, somebody else will assume that position?
That's right. And remember I showed you the parents patriae?
Yes.
See? Under the parents patriae, It was the Crown that conferred prerogative jurisdiction upon the court. See, when you go into court, appearing in any form, whether it's through correspondence or at the doctor's, because that's the court, where there are two more gathered together, it's a court. Even in their room, they have a court. Local government has a court. But because we haven't come in under a proper status and acting for our person, they've taken on the role as the Crown.
So for you to be Crown in court, you don't need to sort of put in a piece of paper beforehand that says you are, or anything like that? There's a number of different ways that you can present yourself as Crown?
Well, it depends if the action against you.
Mm-hmm.
You want to defend yourself at the side of the road. That's why we're looking at the Privacy Act. So you don't have to enter court.
Yes.
It's court prevention.
Okay. Yeah, so the object as a rule is to don't go to courtroom. Don't go to the courtroom.
You want to stay out of court. The paper is the court, and at the side of the road, with the policeman, that's the court. People don't know how to exercise their rights under the Privacy Act.
Okay, well, let's say the copper says, I don't know about the Privacy Act. Would you tell him to get in touch with a senior officer? Or whom?
I've been in that situation. The first time I established myself as the Crown, the officers went out, the officer that pulled me over went out and talked with the senior officer, and they came back and they said, the problem we have is we don't know who to issue the fine to. And what you've stated under the Privacy Act, you have the right to correct personal information, and they actually did that, and I thanked them for that. So they issued the fine to the Crown.
Okay.
In that situation. But after they went out for about 10 minutes and came back, they said, oh, you're a very clever man. You've got us in a catch-22. We don't know who to issue the fine to. And if we issue it to the name, the deceased person's name, and we go to court, you're just going to challenge it as the Crown, because the Act binds the Crown, of course. So catch-22. The next time after that, checkpoint, I had my identity card with all my rights on it and said, oh, here are my rights under the Privacy Act, blah, 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 blah. And he looked at all my rights, because you got to tell them where your rights are. People don't know what their rights are or where they are. They jump up and down and protest about their rights, but what are they? Can you show me where your rights are? So if you got it written down and you present it to them, as I did, you just let me carry on through.
Okay, I think Mark's got another part of his question. There you go.
Yeah. You got to
talking
express your rights.
Talking about subjugation, you heard that term used before, but basically they use that to subjugate us. So that's how they become the Crown, isn't it, really? They've subjugated us. And if you ask them,
yep.
If you ask them, does the court recognise subjugation and basically then presume the position of Crown from them, it's probably just another way. It's just another way I'm thinking about whether you can look at it like that. Is that a valid point?
Yeah. The subjugation comes in where you've disclaimed the estate. That's the subjugation. I can show you the subjugation in the Land Transfer Act and in the several other acts, and specifically where the Crown is assumed to be the creditor. This is in New Zealand legislation. It's a minefield over there. You guys are just walking through a minefield because you got all these different federal and Commonwealth acts. It's a minefield, and it's deliberately done that in Australia.
Well, didn't they want us to win?
Well, they got to confuse more minds because you've got a bigger population in New Zealand and we only got 5 million people. So everything's very clear within legislation because they've got to provide disclosure. But when you're dealing with more people, they've got to confuse the minds even more, because if they came to a central understanding of that they're the Crown, it's over for them, isn't it?
Okay. Now, what I'm going to do, because I'm just noticing there's a few questions going through the chat. We're going to ask people to bring their questions out so that everything can be heard and spoken, because when we watch the recording, the questions that are in chat don't get dealt with. And if it's worthwhile asking in the chat, it's worthwhile voicing. So please ask you to just ask. And what we'll try and do, and we haven't discussed this before, but we'll try and give short answers to short questions. And because that way we're connecting with what people are thinking in the room. So I'll ask Diane to go ahead. If you can unmute yourself, Diane.
Yeah, hi. Hi, everyone. Hi, Crown. It might be a bit of a stupid question, but now that it's all sinking in, should I sign my name? So my name's Diane Sutherland. So should I sign it Crown Diane Sutherland?
Okay. We're at, yes, I hear your question, and what we've identified in relation to how we address ourselves, you'll find that in the 1900 Australian Act, is it? Where the Crown is in there, and in the Constitution, oh wait a minute, the 1900 Constitution Act, is it?
1901.
Or there's a 1900 and a 1901, but the 1900 is connected right back to the UK, eh?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So there's the joiner there through that act to the UK. So in there it talks about the Crown. Now, they've separated the Crown from the sovereign, and you'll find the sovereign in the Australian Act, or what was it originally called, the 1986 Constitution Act, the Australian Act, and you'll see the sovereign in there. So
now, just on that, there was two. There was the Australia Act 1986, but there was also a 1986 Constitution. Is that correct?
yes, I think it's one and the same, because when New Zealand cut themselves off in 1986, you guys followed suit. So in what we can see in those two acts is that they've separated the two, the Crown and the sovereign. The sovereign is actually your deceased person, which represents the land that you were born in, the sovereignty. Everyone's fighting for their sovereignty. They already got it. It's the name on your birth certificate. But you cannot exercise the sovereignty unless you're the Crown. It's that partnership again. And you see it in the act here.
So if Diane wants to represent herself on paper as Crown, yep. Is she Diane Crown, or does she drop the surname? How does she do it?
Okay, so to address yourself in your full in the act, let's go back to that first section. Here we go. So this is you in the act that you're or any other act. This is the Crown's capacity, right? So you want to address whatever organisation, and at the tail end here, where an agency for the purpose of this act, you would put your name in there.
Okay.
You see?
Yeah, but what would the format take? So I'm Stephen Mark Limbry. Is that what I write down?
You want to put in any correspondence, there's your titles right there. So you are the Crown, and at the tail end, you're acting through your agent, which is the name on the birth certificate.
Okay, so I put down Crown as agent for Stephen Mark Limbry?
No, I'll put this whole script in.
So give me an example. I'm trying to get the words out of your mouth, mate, but it's getting pretty difficult.
Okay, okay. So instead of having to speak it, put it onto a piece of paper and hand it to them.
Okay, dictate it to me.
Okay, so under this act, is this an act that binds the Crown? Well, it's unenforceable if they say it's not, right? So here's your position. This act binds the Crown and right of the Commonwealth and of each of the states of Australia, Capital Territory, and of the Northern Territory. This is going to, really blow their minds. And two, nothing in this act renders the Crown in right of the Commonwealth or state official script. Three, blah, blah, blah. And at the end there, acting and territory and agency, and put your name right there.
Yeah, now we're missing the point because this is a problem with English. Now, what I'm trying to do is get you to tell me exactly how to write my name down as Crown.
Right there.
Yeah, no, but how? Tell me the words. So my name's Stephen Mark Limbury. That's a birth certificate. If I'm going to put it on paper and I wanted them to see me as Crown, what words do I put on the paper?
Okay, so signing off at the bottom.
Yep.
Crown acting through.
Crown acting through.
Yep.
Crown acting. I know I put you on the spot, but I know what she's asking, and I want to know too. So, Crown acting through Stephen Mark Limbury.
That's the relationship, but you want to sign off as the Crown.
So underneath that, I would just put Crown, not the Crown.
Just show them.
Oh.
See?
If you can get.
You just sign as the Crown, but that's the relationship. The Crown is
Actually, I just asked you to stop screen share for the moment.
Yep.
And if you put that up, then people will be able to see. I'm sorry to be so pedantic, but I know what people want to know.
Yeah.
And so we'll be clear.
Okay.
Because we've got to stand together and we've got to be correct when we do that. Isn't that right?
That's right. So if you sign any documents, just sign it as Crown.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm.
And if you can show your card so that we can see that.
Okay.
Just show them the back.
See, this is Jane's here. So it's on a bank card. So
oh, okay. Says
just sign as Crown. Yeah.
Yes.
See, your signature can be anything different from your name.
Yes.
So everyone keeps signing as their name and consenting to being that name.
Now, just to give an example of assumptions that people make, Crown, is I've got my credit card or my debit card and I have my name, I have my autograph on the back. And I went through a checkout and I put my autograph on the paper and the fella said, mate, you're supposed to sign it like your card. And I said, okay, so would you like to look at my card? Because that's your job. You're supposed to verify that my mark is the same as my card. And then I turned it around to him. And he went,
that's right.
Oh, I said, is there anything you'd like to say now?
So, yeah, the authorized signatory is the Crown.
Show them the back of that.
So we just sign as the Crown, okay?
Yes.
Regardless of what your name is, your body corporate. See, the Crown is the one that has the is the authorized signatory.
Yes. No, thank you very much for being so clear.
Document. But to condense that relationship that you saw in the act there, if you're going to be applying any of that legislation, put that up as your letterhead. You know, a document has structure to it, eh?
Yes.
You have a title and you have your jurisdiction. Then you have the guts of what you are directing, and then you have the authorization at the bottom.
Okay.
So a letter has structure, but each act, there's your jurisdiction, apply it in its full context.
Okay, now I think what might happen is the next time that we have you on, we might have some people that have prepared some documents as an example, and we can have a look at them and see if that's a good example of what we should be doing. How about that?
Yeah.
Okay, but we'll get the people to do the work, not you, and you can look at their work and say, yes, that's top marks, or go back to school, whatever. We'll do the work on it. So I'll ask Jim to unmute. He has a question. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, okay. So, hi, Crown. G'day, I'm Jim.
Hey,
I don't think we've actually met yet, but I've seen a lot of your work and so forth. Rick Swift, Agent Swift, went into court last week, and he presented to court as, I'm here in the capacity of the Crown. I'm acting on behalf of the man who is Richard Ronald Swift, whatever. He didn't even get really past that point as soon as he mentioned that he was there as the Crown and was there on behalf of the man. He got about 3 steps more forward, which was the magistrate said, well, if you're not going to accept the person, then you need to get out of my court. And he said, well, turned around and said to everyone, well, okay, well, everyone here can see that obviously I am the man, Richard Ronald Swift. I've claimed that I am the man of Richard Ronald Swift, and I am here in the capacity of the Crown. And you can all see that I'm here. And they said, well, you need to get out of my court. You need to get out of my court, and I'm going to issue an arrest warrant for you, and blah, 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 blah. And in that instant, he was brought out of the court instantly.
Yep.
It's all for a reason he shouldn't have even been in there in the first place, but nonetheless. So he try and test the theory of presenting to court in a capacity of the Crown. So, being
Maybe
so,
Jane
how
can
would you have approached that as being yourself? How would you go in as the capacity of the Crown, or would you claim to be the Crown if you were to be put in front of the magistrate? Would you have worked it the same way? Would you have claimed the living man rather than the person, etc.? That's one of my questions for you.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay. Jane, who was just in before, was in the same situation, and he made the same threats, and she was said to the judge if she was fine with that, but she would be reporting him to the War Crimes Tribunal. In that situation, in 2 other situations, 2 blackfellas, separate cases, they went into the court and said I was a private person, Crown. The judge said he had no jurisdiction and asked him what his orders are. But because the Crown has been used in court and has been used in correspondence with the agencies, they will move the goalposts. They will, work out strategies to respond to that situation you just talked about.
Yeah, it's I've noticed the corrupter corrupt, and when the corrupter corrupt, the corrupt do not follow the corrupt guidelines of the corrupt.
Yeah.
Which means that, I mean, myself, I went to court a couple of weeks ago, and I had a trial with no jury. I had no witnesses. Actually, Agent Swift was one of my witnesses, and he was actually arrested at the front of the courthouse. My other witness was told they couldn't come in. And then when I walked through the doors to the courthouse, there were 10 police witnesses against me, which I'd only seen 4 of them. And in accordance to everything, the whole thing and everything else, that there was no clerk of the courts, there was no jury, there's no anything. And I even stated to the judge, I said, excuse me, Judge, I thought I was here for a trial. I'm just curious as to, I'm a little bit confused. If I'm in a trial, isn't there supposed to be a jury of my 12 peers? And the judge said, oh, that's COVID-19. I said, oh,
Yeah.
so COVID-19 means the police are immune. That's why they've got 10 witnesses, but you arrested one of mine and wouldn't let the other one in. He said, oh, either you make a deal with the prosecutor or you're going to jail, Mr. Greer. I said, well, not Mr. Greer, but if you insist. You know, I sort of knew my battle was lost. But what I'm sort of trying to put across to you, and what I think Stephen was trying to get across to you, was the wording that you would use if you were put in these sorts of situations as the Crown and operating under the Crown. How would you word these documents, or how would you approach the magistrates yourself if you were to say, I'm here as the Crown, or I'm here as whatever, and this is, we're trying to get the specific formula for everyone to be able to utilize, to be able to make it happen for us, and to provide some sort of remedy for the people. I think that's what we're trying to aim for.
The statement that we utter, like we have a standard statement, like I am here as Crown, I am the Crown, I represent the Crown, whatever.
What's your wording when if you had to go to court, or if you had to approach an officer, or if you had to write a letter, what would be your wording for that?
Okay, like I was saying before, you don't want to be in court because they make up the rules as they go. And especially now with the COVID, they've given themselves a lot more immunity. They've changed the goalposts big time because the Crown. A lot more
direction. Yeah.
Okay, so we're dealing with a totally new beast now, and we're working through all the legislation. The speed that they're changing the legislation in New Zealand, that's affecting you guys over there. They're going hard out. They're amending legislation. They're giving themselves a lot more immunity. That they are stripping everyone's rights away, and it's a new playing field. So, in regards to
what we might do, Crown, what I might do is, I think Jane's in the room, and she's actually done it, hasn't she, in the courtroom?
Yes, she went through that trial when she realised that she was the Crown. I don't think she can speak where she is.
Well, I'll just ask her if she can unmute, because she can say what she said.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm going to be straight up, and I'm not going to beat around the bush, right? No one can prepare you for this. You need to have belief and faith and know who you are. So if you're going to think you're Joe Bloggs from 123 ABC Street, well, that's what you're going to be. I know for a fact that I'm the Crown, and I'm the owner of the data, which is my name. I direct it, I control it, right? I've been in that court situation where I went in there as Crown and I didn't contract to the name. I've been threatened to have a bench warrant issued, the whole 9 yards. But I didn't crumble. I stood my ground. I wasn't rude. I wasn't cheeky. And I've been in the courtroom numerous times and I have been cheeky and rude. And I'll be honest about that. But this time I was very humble. I knew who I was and I just went in there as Crown. I didn't go in there as Crown acting for the name or any of that nonsense, because if you go in there doing that, they're going to railroad you.
Okay, Jane. So what words did you say when you were in the courtroom?
I am here as Crown to discharge the matter.
And they responded with?
Well, are you blah, 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 using the name? And I said, I'm here as Crown to discharge the matter. Now, I didn't know what I know now. See, I just got told to go into court and use Crown, and I just did it. And I just went in there and did it, but I had belief. I knew who I was.
Yeah, we can hear it.
I have belief. I am the Crown. I am the owner of my data, and this is my kingdom, my temple, my body, and I'm in control of my vessel. They are not the administrators.
So if you went in there now, knowing what you know, because you've got a little bit more experience,
I wouldn't be in there. Period.
Yep.
Okey-dokey.
So if you want to go in there and be belligerent, go in there by all means. I've been in there heaps, and I can recommend you now, don't go in there.
So if they send you a summons or whatever,
Well, this is the trick. As soon as you get a piece of paper, they've quoted the act on it. Go straight to Osterley and go in there and look at the act. And the first word is, the code word is Crown. Search it.
yep.
The remedies and the law. Everybody's getting all, like what Crown said before, you're getting all this regurgitated nonsense that people have been going over and over and over, and they haven't been doing their own homework. It's like driving a car. When you first get in a car, everybody is the worst. You bunny hop it, you stall it, you do everything. You just about kill your mother or whoever's in the car with you because you haven't practiced it. It's practice. It's like anything new. You've got to keep doing it. It's like if you're going to search legislation and you want to know your rights, you need to get in there and you need to start learning it.
Okay, so
No one can hand it to you on a platter. You've got to get in there and ask questions and do it. You can't.
So Jane, so we look at legislation, we do all that, but did you have an opportunity, or is it advisable to do some sort of role play with each other, or how did you get to, because you're really definite about who you are, and that's clear. We can hear it in your voice. How did you get there?
Oh man, I've done heaps of stuff actually. I've been railroaded and all sorts of stuff, but I had a good teacher.
Who was that?
Crown.
Yeah, but when you speak, like what I'm saying, if you were, because you know how to speak, you just know how to do it. Did you practice that, or did that come from reading? How did you get?
I've got a really good circle of friends, and they all know who they are, and they all know that they're Crown, and we talk all the time. And just with a lot of the work that I've been doing, I've gone into government agencies and gone in as the Crown. I've rung them up as the Crown. I've rung them up saying this is an information privacy request under the Privacy Act 1988, and they changed straight away. I've been pulled over on the side of the road by the police, and I said, is this an information privacy request under the Privacy Act 1993? Because I was in a different country. And they didn't know what to say. They said, yes. I said, well, is this an interference of privacy? And he goes, he didn't know what to say because I didn't attack him saying I'm a sovereign and I've got free rights to travel on the road because I'm a free man on the land. I mean, that's just delusional. You need to be polite to them because they're just doing their job. And if you exercise your rights in a polite manner instead of being belligerent and just ask the correct questions, they'll let you through.
Okay, so when you say, is this, like you ring up you or whatever, you say this is an information privacy request, so you're putting them on notice where they need to be when they interact with you. And if you've got someone ask you a question and say, is this an information privacy request?
Yeah, so you just flip the is and the this around.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's just you're flipping two words.
Is this an interference with privacy? And from the moment they do that, they can only say no, then ask you a question and prove that that was the wrong answer.
So if they say yes, so if you say to them, if they say yes, this is an information privacy request, or just say yes, say, well, is this going to be an interference with privacy?
Yeah.
I mean, they can either say yes or no, can't they?
Yeah, so okay, so I'm a belligerent and ignorant. I go, yeah, it is. It is an interference with your privacy. You'll answer all my questions.
Well, I'd show them the act. So, and you show them. Get your phone out and show them. They're governed. If you go to the police website, if you go to the government website, if you go to all these websites, they've all got a privacy statement.
Mm-hmm.
But, and I know this, if you're going to drive around thinking, oh, I'm going to get picked up by the cops today, you're going to get picked up by the cops because you've just manifested it.
Yeah.
I don't see them.
So it sounds like what people should be doing initially, if there's any agency or whatever they've got to interact with, the first thing they should do is look at their privacy policy.
And this is what Crown's trying to say to you. Your protection is in the Privacy Act, because what they're doing is they're sharing your data, right? Like you ring them up and they go, oh, this call is being recorded for training purposes and quality assurance. And then they'll send you out a contract saying, oh, your data may be shared. Maybe. It doesn't say must. You know, there's a difference between those two. May be shared with other government agencies. So these are, what are they? Agreed sharing agreements, aren't they? And they're sharing all your data because data is worth money, right? They're trading your data for debt securities. So if you're, and you're allowing them to trade your data by giving them consent, by allowing them to share your information under the Privacy Act. That's why when they call you, they go, what's your name? What's your date of birth? Where do you live? And you hand it over.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? So
yes, I do. Now, I'm also seeing comments about somebody asking people to write this stuff down so they can do it. Now, what I strongly suggest is that the time that it takes you to write down the question to ask somebody else to do it, you could do it yourself.
Yeah, that's
if you've
right.
got an issue with me saying that, you can do whatever you want. But this is new to the majority of people going through this, and we need to do it ourselves. So we've got Crown and we've got Jane. Jane has been so crystal clear, and she's telling us exactly what Crown was telling us. But they have a different manner, a different way of being. And so in some ways we can connect more with Jane because we've been as belligerent as she has been and not as respectful as Crown is. So...
Oh, no, I tell you, I've been so belligerent, and I'm sure Agent Swift could agree with that. But
yeah, so you've been through the learning curve. But what I'm doing, I've asked you the question, you've answered it. People need to write it down. This is recorded and it will be put up so people can watch it again. Take a note of the time roughly of when it is, and you can fast forward to there to get the bits that you want, whatever. The other thing you can do, of course, is anybody can write stuff into the chat and you can save the chat. Every single person in this room can save the chat. So, but what I'll push on you is don't put it onto other people to make you free. Make yourself free. And get yourself to know. Everybody's been told where to go, what to look up and what to do. And if that might sound a little bit hard, and I don't give a stuff. Like, we've got to get off our own arse and do it ourselves. We got into trouble by living in a nanny state, all of us. We've got to take more control of our own lives. I'm making notes as we go while I'm trying to listen to what people are saying. It's not always easy, but you've got to do it. It'll work. So we all do it. We all make some notes, then we can compare. We'll find out someone got it wrong, other people got it right. Work together, but don't make demands on other people to give you the information when it's all right here in front of all of us.
Can I say something, Steve? That,
I'm drawing breath now.
You're right. The trick to this is everyone, you know how everyone's searching, oh, how do I correct my status and all this, and we all search for hours and days and years and whatever trying to find this magic pill to take. Mm-hmm. The trick is knowing who you are, and you've got to have faith, you've got to have belief, and you've got to know who you are. So I'm talking about knowing who I am right now, and I feel amazing. I've got a big smile on my face. Pity you can't see me. And I know who I am, and it's taken me a long time to get here. But if you got to come in, like, we're flipping from the old world into the new world. You know, this is all about, we're shifting as, I don't know, our consciousness is shifting. And we can't all ascend unless everybody's ready to ascend. So the longer you want to take, mucking around, waiting for the magic pill, it's going to be longer for all of us. So just get out there and do it. It's just practical practice. It's like if you're a tradesman, you got to get on the job and do it. You
Yeah.
can't sit on your ass and do nothing. Just get out and do it.
Yeah, so from the sounds of things too, there's a few phrases that would be good to get under your belt as far as the Privacy Act is concerned. And what you're saying is what I've been saying to people for ages and ages, that a piece of paper doesn't make you free. You have to know who you are. A plastic ID card is a plastic ID card. If you want to identify as a plastic ID card, what you're identifying as a bloody dead thing. You've got to be able to walk and talk as the flesh being that you are, the man, the woman. You're the Crown. These are the words that you can start to use and realise that the actual legislation is written for you, but you didn't know it was you, and that's what we're doing. And Jane, you're displaying so much confidence and got so much swag about who you are that it's really quite inspiring. And
I've been through the ringer, I tell you. I've been through the ringer on my journey, and all I can say is you got to have belief. We're in a time now where our freedoms and our rights are getting removed, and people are getting tested, they're getting vaccinated, our children are getting removed, and you know, Australia is God's army, and we know this. And look, I'm not religious by any stretch of the imagination, but I know that there's a lot of amazing people in Australia, and you know, the time is now to do something.
Now it's relatively recently, but now I'll just go real general. I got a real general awareness of this, just so people realise the significance. But you were working sort of as a closed group until you got to a point where you had it all sorted out exactly right, and then you could bring everybody on board. And then with all the shit that's hit the fan, you've realised that we've just got to have everybody on board now, whether we're ready or not, because the time is of the essence. And that's why you've come in and you're giving us your time in Australia, because we all need each other.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we do. We all need each other, and just to yeah. I mean, there's so much fake news out there. You know, it's just absolutely diabolical.
Yeah.
And I think now's the time that we all stand up. And the trick is, once you know who you are, you don't have any more fear. So you're not worried about them, what they do to you. And that's the trick. They're like a dog on heat. They can smell fear, and that's what it is. If you're fearful, they're going to come and get you.
Yeah.
If you have no fear, they don't.
Okay, now I'm going because I've got a few people with their hands up, and I can see some of the names they might want to talk for a while. Actually, you're one of them. I'll lower your hand. Oh no, I muted you, did I? I think I did. I have to unmute you again. So what I wanted to ask you, if we could leave people with one thought or one key to give them confidence about doing this, apart from everything you said, but what would the one thing be to have people take on board?
You just got to have belief. Like, you were the Crown at birth. I don't know what happened between now and then. You know, just if people just got to role play together and practice and actually put this stuff into practice.
Yeah,
if you've got a document that needs to be looked over, then get some help, you know.
Yeah, that's what I'm suggesting. If people write up their documents and then we bring them back to a meeting like this, we can do a screen share and look at it and we can pull it to pieces.
Yeah.
So one of the things,
but I'm sure people don't want that all over the internet, though. I don't know.
Oh, well, like, I mean, gets to a point, doesn't it? Gets to a point where we've got to share the knowledge. And unfortunately, there's some people want to make money out of doing things and they wouldn't want to do it. But here we don't restrict anybody coming into this room. And I've had some people come into this room that I don't want to associate with, but I'll still admit them to the room, so they're free to have information. They're free to participate and speak if they want, whatever. Because we've all got to go through this. We've all got to go through this together. And what I'm talking about,
no one got discriminated, eh? No one's been discriminated in this form of bondage.
Everybody's allowed in. That's always the way it is, regardless, unless they really break a social contract, and then everybody else would know that they did that. So there are some rules. So what I'm saying with the paperwork, I've seen people who really know their stuff. Now, I studied with Judge David Wynne-Miller, and he used to get me, when he was in Australia, he used to get me to check his paperwork for errors. And the first time he asked me to do that, I said, you got to be kidding. Like, as if I know like 1% of what you know. And he said, that's not the point, Stephen. He said, I will read what I want to see. He said, you will read what's there. And that is what I do. I read what is there. And if you've made a mistake, I'll pick it up. If I've made a mistake, I'll pick it up tomorrow when I read it again. And it's not so present in my mind. But we need each other. There should be at least 5 people producing one piece of paper. So that's because you need the different input, the different perspective to get the wording correct and to pick up mistakes.
You
So,
need the second set of eyes, you know, because when you're writing documents, and I know myself, when you write them, you don't see your own errors until someone else has looked at it.
correct. No, that's right. So I'll leave you there, Jane, and thank you so much for your participation.
You're welcome.
Now I've got Rosmira there. If you can unmute yourself. Go ahead. Rosmira, you're unmuted, so if it's not working, it's got to be from your end. Okay, you'll have to work that one out, Russ. We're not hearing anything. So, Malcolm, go ahead.
Yeah, I've got something totally different. An ancestor of mine came out on the founding fleet of South Australia under contract, and at the end of that contract, he was awarded a deed of grant. Do I have any connection to that deed of grant as a firstborn of the firstborn?
Can you unmute, please, Crown?
Yep.
Go ahead.
I hear what you're saying, and what they've done, and I can show you in the Health Sector Transfer Act, is that they've captured your predecessors in title. So through birth, deaths and marriages, they've, through the civil registration, they've maintained control of that land, and your birth certificate representing a license to occupy that land, and it's created for a lease agreement. So, yeah, you're still connected back to your ancestor through your predecessor in title. That's why they maintain the birth, death and marriages record. You can probably find out that you are connected back there and on the public record. So they capture your ancestor there, and they're still maintaining that today for you.
Right. Well, the property, was it within the family until, well, within the last 40 years, I'd say. But I was just wondering if I still had any title to it at all, whether they would have converted it or whatever.
Okay. Well, we're talking about the fee simple title in relation to land now, residential property. Now, the legal name is the fee simple title. If you got a land title to property right now, and you look at the status of the title, they're using your name, which is the fee simple title granted by the Crown yourself. If you claimed it as the Crown, then you have the allodial title to that of the land that's registered in your name. And that's a hidden feature that we've found out for another colleague that's gone through his property being stripped from him. They have these hidden memorandums where it clearly proves and states that the Crown owns the land, but you didn't know you were the Crown. And all you ended up with was a title, fee simple title, tenants in common, to occupy that land under a lease, unfortunately. That's the situation with everyone across the board. That's why the council can do whatever they like, because it's disclaimed, it's an estate disclaimed by the Crown. And I can show everyone in the Local Government Rating Act 2002 in New Zealand, that is the case. It's called abandoned land. So through the Crown disclaiming the estate, which is the name on the birth certificate, and it's been disclaimed or subjugated from the Crown because the Crown has taken on the identity of the estate in fee simple. So that's the new form of land ownership was established in New Zealand, and the new form of bondage through employment, which is the name on the birth certificate, was also established in New Zealand.
Here in Australia, they've abandoned the paper copies and everything's on the computer now, so I don't know what's happened with that.
Yes. So everything is Crown land, and they create all these derivatives just for a lease and a license to occupy as tenants in common.
Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, that was all part of our coming out and realizing we were the Crown, and that's why they've responded through the COVID. But their whole system is operating on the presumption that they are the Crown, when in fact we are, the people are.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, keeping us in that position, they assume our title, don't they?
Yes, it's abandoned land.
Yeah.
Abandoned.
It's actually consumed. Thanks very much for that, Malcolm.
No problem.
So go ahead, Kim.
Yeah, I put a link up with a girl that's having trouble in SA. She's just had a baby. She's breastfeeding it, and the bloody bulls are there trying to take the bloody kid off her. So if anyone can jump on the link I've put there and help this girl in any way, direct her to advocate me or something, it would be a good thing. It's just bloody shocking that they can do this sort of shit, you know?
Okay, in that area, is it possible that there'd be some people in the room, like 2 or 3 or 4, that could link up through the chat and maybe work on that? Because I'm sure that there's some, at the very least, some letters that could be sent. Do you have an answer or something to contribute there, Crown?
You got to go to the Act, like Jane was confirming, to see what authority they're using, and see where the Crown's position is in that Act. Yeah.
She's got a baby that's Indigenous. She looks fairly white herself, but she's got brown eyes by the looks of it. So I'd say she's got Indigenous in her. But yeah, it's just shocking that they can. I don't know if she's on one of these NGO or whatever, but I don't know the reasoning behind it. But she's actually pleading for bloody help. And nobody should take their bloody kid off them just after she's given birth to the bloody thing.
Okay, if you contact me again later too, Kim, I know somebody that might be able to offer some inroads in that area.
Yeah, thanks, mate.
Yep.
So, but the secret, I think, straight up when what Crown's talking, not the secret, but one of the things is to look at the legislation that they're invoking, and then pull that apart, see if it's binding on the Crown, and also have a look at their privacy policies that they have. Again, that's as a starting point. And obviously, I don't have a wealth of experience doing that, but that's what I'm learning from Crown. That's what I would do if I was in that situation.
So use the Privacy Act as your armour, and then operate through the Act that they are operating under.
As the Crown.
Yeah, as the Crown.
Yeah, and if they're applying sections that aren't binding on the Crown, that's just inappropriate, and you've got to remove those.
Yeah. So if the Act that they're invoking is binding on the Crown, then it should have sections within there that provides protection for the Crown to to nullify their claim.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword.
Okay.
They're using a section in the Act, and you've got to apply the protection against that section within the same Act under under the Privacy. The Privacy Act changes the jurisdiction because they're public entities, and
Yep.
you're taking them into the private. That gives you jurisdiction.
Okay.
It's your Privy Council.
Now that's also in that area. That's where it's. You were saying before that there's a number of different types of persons, and it's quite fine to identify as a private person.
Well, they've given your depending on the Act, they may refer to the individual or the person. That's still your agent, and you still got to use that terminology to identify yourself.
But if you say you're a private person, you're not reducing your status?
I'll give you an example. If I share the screen here and go back to the, where are we? Oops. Where are we? Okay. Is it this one? Protection? No. Here we go. Interference. See, when you invoke the Privacy Act and change the jurisdiction, and they become your servant through is this information privacy request. Now we just got to get that part right in your legislation. That's what we use over here, is that part to invoke the Privacy Act and your rights. Then we're talking about, is this an interference with privacy? And in there they refer to the personal information about the individual. So the individual is Nelson Painter, right? The Crown, through all those different statuses, is acting as the individual. So you're taking control of the individual in this act. See, it might be a different word they use in another act. It's not always the same.
Mm-hmm. So each act is specific, like to itself.
Separate, and they will have different role plays.
Okay.
They're not all the same. So in the Privacy Act here, it's affecting the individual, which is your person. The person belongs to the Crown. In this scenario. Okay. So what they're doing is interfering with your privacy. So what's happening to that lady under that act that they're invoking, whatever the terminology is there, comes back to the Privacy Act and the interfering with your privacy here.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's all your rights. And you'll see that the Privacy Act links with a whole lot of other acts. There's your taxation. They're all interlinked. The overriding act is the Privacy Act. You've got to activate that first before you go and address any issue under any other act.
Mm-hmm.
See the relationship?
Yeah. But you would, yeah.
And that goes with local council too.
Yes.
They're governed by the Privacy Act as well.
Yeah, and then you look up what their privacy policy is.
Yes, correct. And
now,
see the role of the Crown in that act and how he's acting out through those different roles. Yeah.
Okay.
But they don't make it easy over there because they've put on all these different little agencies. It's the same analogy in the Bible where God has many mansions.
Okay.
They're all different.
So we need many people. We're many people, so we have many facets to look from different angles.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's how they've created the smoke screens and mirrors, so they protect themselves right at the tail end of it. But once you get that relationship right, you got hold of the sword and you're commanding them at the end of it.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got Eileen has a question. She's been waiting patiently. Go ahead, Eileen.
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm not asking a question. Actually, I've been writing notes madly, but I still can't work out how to actually, with the chat box, you know how you said you can save it. On my phone, I don't know how to save it.
Throw your phone away and get in a laptop. I don't know either. So if somebody else has got a phone, if you could message Eileen how to do that, because I can't help there. I can help off a laptop through
That's
there.
all right.
And I'll mention that Jane or ACER 8 is sort of available to help some people, to show a couple of people some things who can then show other people. So I suggest if you make contact through the chat box there, so a little work group, and Jane will word you up and direct you where to look. But only go there if you're brave, because she's pretty fierce.
Oh yeah, she's I just sent her a message to say that she's just fantastic and very, very inspiring.
Yeah. So hook into that. Anybody who wants to get some close-up training, get there with Jane, because perhaps in a Zoom meeting she's talking about 1 or 2 people, but if it's a Zoom meeting there could be more without it really taking up any more time, and then we can spread. We need to go bacterial on this. So okay, Andy.
All right.
Thank you, Eileen.
Thank you.
There you go, Steve. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
All good. You were talking about council tax right at the start, and I was just going to let you know, I went through the first year, and they sent me a fire notice in regard to cutting the grass. So I cut it and then sent them a bill for cutting the grass because it was their land.
Yeah, can I just, is there some glass being knocked around or something there, Andy?
I think Tanya was eating the pudding. Sorry, man, she's just finished. Yeah, you got us on our meal time. I do apologise.
That's all right.
Well, so the first year went by, I sent them a notice in regard to the cost of it, and a second notice and an affidavit in regard to the cost of looking after their land, which I charged out at 55 cents per square metre, I think it was, because I've got 3 sides of a 2.5 acre block that I look after, which is about 10 metres out. The second year, it came through and I sent them a notice, and they tried to take me to court, and I just replied to every question they had, basically with another question in regard to the 1986 Act and its lawfulness, and I heard it went to court because somebody else told me, "Oh, you're in court tomorrow," and I said, "Well, not that I know of." So I emailed the court and said, "You know, are you going to have the court case without me as ex parte?" I think you put it as, and that was about, it would be 9 to 10 months ago, and I've heard nothing since. So I don't know where I'm at the moment. I've just received another council tax bill, which I was going to do exactly the same as. It's now 65 cents per square metre to look after it. But at the end of the day, it's their land or Crown land that they expect me to look after under a Fine Prevention Act, which I then bill them back for the cost of looking after that land, which is my time and effort, whether it's my sheep that eat it or whether it's my mower that cuts it. I don't know how I stand on that, and I just wondered what other people's thoughts were to that argument in regard to looking after the nature strip, because it's not your land, but they expect you to look after it.
Well, there's things I could say to it, but the fact that they're still billing you, you want to take notice of it. There's got to be something else you've got to bring in to knock it dead. Have you spoken to Rick about giving them a self-executing contract in relation to that?
That's probably now I've met Rick. I mean, this was all done before I met Rick, so this is probably the next stage would be to go through a self-executing contract and possibly include something in regards to the Crown and the 1988 Act and various other things. But but I mean, every time I've done it, I've kept my court of record, so I've got all my court of record of what I've done and the answers I gave to the court. But it just amazes me that I heard nothing back from the court, and it's like 8 months ago.
Well, the only thing that when you've got property and there's property involved, the council is a corporation. It's not going to die next week. they're going to be there in perpetuity. And a lot of the time what they do is they start accruing costs against you and wait till they've got a big monetary amount against you because they want your property. So just, I'd be making sure that I was doing something about it. That's
Well,
advice I can
I'm
give you.
certainly doing something about it. I just don't know whether what I'm doing is going to work as an end game, or, I mean, Mark's only, you know, he's sort of 12 months behind where I started, but, you know, I'm at a stand because they sent me a fire prevention notice, and I thought, well, hold on, so they're telling me I've got to cut the grass that doesn't belong to me.
Well, perhaps the Crown should issue a self-executing contract relative to whether the council's got the authority over.
Well, this is where I'm looking for a little bit of advice, and obviously I'd love to spend time with Rick and understand the legislation I need to be putting in there. But yeah, and once we've got a few test cases in place, we can share it out to the rest. You know, at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. It's about sharing the knowledge.
I think you'll find Rick will be champing at the bit to put out a self-executing contract with 2 crowns on it. So
is he in the room?
You could even do 3, mate.
Is he in the room or not?
Yeah, he's there somewhere. You can have a chat with him, but you've got his number. Now, we're getting close to where I don't want to go on for too long. We're approaching the 2 hours. We've got a couple more questions.
Yeah, all good. Thanks, mate.
Thank you, Andy. Boris?
Isn't it called an abatement notice?
Oh, sorry, Andy? Is it an abatement notice?
Yeah. They are issuing you with abatement notice. Why aren't you issuing them with abatement notice?
Or a cease and desist?
Not a cease and desist.
An
No, they use abatement notices. They've been acting on behalf of the Crown all this time and making and charging the tenant these fees and issuing abatement notices against the tenant who's in occupation of that license and lease.
So I've got a block here which I completely own with no mortgage on one part of it, and then the other part we've got a mortgage on. So I know there's clauses within a mortgage that actually trick us all into paying rates.
Yes.
But by you said abatement. What does abatement mean? Can you sort of explain the meaning of that word?
Abatement notice, cease and desist. But
okay,
that's the
cease and
terminology
desist
that we're
notice.
using. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not a cease and desist notice, but it means that.
Yes,
No,
exactly. You've got to use terminology in the Act.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Yeah. It's another word I've not really comprehended the meaning of, and I was just confirming for myself.
If only we had a dictionary.
Yeah. So
I mean, at the end of the day, they're asking you to look after their land, and they're using acts and statutes to make you look after that land.
Okay.
Yet they're expecting you to do it for nothing. Well,
Yeah.
Is my time worth nothing? That's my point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, here's the trick to all that: is this? They're rating the name on the certificate of title, are they not?
They are rating the name.
Yeah, they're rating
They're
you.
addressing it to your fiction.
Yes,
Yeah.
they're rating it. Yeah, okay. So they're
they're
making a rate
rating
notice
you.
to the fictionless name. Yes.
Not the land itself, that you've got a lease and a license to occupy as joint tenants in common. Now, it's called adverse possession. Adverse possession because you are using that name.
Okay.
That's listed onto their certificate of title. That's why they can do what they're doing to you, because it didn't belong to you in the first place.
Yeah, you only own the lot, not the property.
No, you don't own any of it.
No. It's only your name on the certificate of title that gives you the right to lease and occupy through a license, and that was granted by the Crown. See, when you entered into that mortgage to purchase their property, you didn't realize you were the Crown. So they've taken up the position as the Crown, who's the creditor. And because you're in an adverse position of using that name, That's why they can charge you and do whatever they like to you.
So you can basically say to them.
So how do you put a contract in place to stop that happening?
Okay, it's like this, Andy. You write to them, you say, excuse me, mate, you're sitting in my seat. I'm resuming that seat. Go away.
Yeah.
Like, that's paraphrased, obviously, but that's what's happening. They've taken over your seat because you left it vacant.
Yeah. Yeah. So, so that adverse possession, because we've enforced or we've unknowingly used that name to identify ourselves, is an adverse action. The adverse possession is the adverse action, and that's in relation to the Privacy Act again here. So in the Privacy Act here, there's only one reference to the adverse effect, right? Or being in having adverse possession of that deceased person's name to identify yourself. So adverse action. So it's an information privacy request. It's an interference with privacy, and it's causing an adverse action. So in the same act, the adverse action, see the adverse action? Everything that they're doing to you under an act is an adverse action because you're in adverse possession of that name. So see the adverse action here, which will take you to the Fair Works Act. See over here, we got the adverse action in the Privacy Act. But over there, they've separated it. The adverse action can only be exercised through the Fair Works Act, and there's only one link in that Privacy Act that takes you there to enforce your adverse action. This is what's happening to everything you're talking about is here.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Trickery of legislation.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So the adverse action is causing you all these things here. That's happening to you now because you're in adverse possession of that.
So, Craig, just test my understanding. If I manage to enact what we're suggesting now, when I send them a bill, they should pay.
Well, I'll show you in relation to adverse action in New Zealand. I put it up there. Oh, one minute. Where are we? I'll just open it up again, the New Zealand version of the adverse action, okay, in regards to payment, right? Privacy Act, here we go. Here's the adverse action in the New Zealand legislation. Over there, they split it, they took it away and they put it into the Fair Works Act. But here's the adverse action still in the Privacy Act, and this is what it says. Adverse action means any lawful action of any agency that may adversely affect the rights, benefits, and privileges, obligations, or interests of any specific individual, including any decision to cancel or suspend any monetary payment, to refuse an application for monetary payment, to alter the rate or amount of a monetary payment, to recover an overpayment of a monetary payment, to impose a penalty. This is an adverse action. These are your rights, but we haven't been utilizing them. To recover a penalty or a fine, to make an assessment of the amount of any tax, levy, or other charge, or any contribution that is payable by an individual, or to alter an assessment of that kind, to investigate the possible commission of an offence. You got to use your rights at the side of the road when you're dealing with the policeman. You got to use your rights when you're dealing with those other agencies once you establish your jurisdiction. There it is all there.
Okay,
what they're doing is adverse. Anything they do to you under an act is an adverse action. This is how you protect yourself under the Privacy Act. So that's
okay, and that's in our Work Act, is it? Did you say that had been moved into which section in our Act?
Okay, so I'll just jump out of the New Zealand one and let's go back to where it is over there. So in the Privacy Act, you'll find the adverse action here connecting to the Fair Works Act 2009. So section 94H, adverse action, they've hidden your remedy over here in this act.
What you're saying is that every act that they've got, there's a remedy within another act.
They're all interlinked. It's like a spider web. They've hidden bits and pieces of source code in different acts.
But there's always a remedy within the act.
Yes, there is a remedy. Correct.
Providing that you remember who you are.
Okay. Now you're looking at the Fair Works Act in relation to that adverse action. Now let's go into the Fair Works Act and check out the Crown. Oh, so in the Fair Works Act, let's check out the status of the Crown in that act. Oh, this act binds the Crown in each of its capacities. That's that individual, that's that person, that's your name on that certificate of title that they are charging, yeah? However, this act does not make the Crown liable to be prosecuted for an offence. They're all interlinked. You got to apply the law. You got to be in the law. You can't be an outlaw. There's no remedy.
I think that's given us more than enough to look at through there, Crown. We'll just move on because it's getting late.
Thanks, Steve. That was an awesome little lesson there. Cheers.
Yeah, no, that was awesome. You did really well with that, Crown. Thank you so much.
Cheers,
Boris,
mate.
Boris, if you want to go ahead.
Yes, just to back up a little bit, there was a fellow, Simon, was it, that was asking about what happened to the titles, the real estate titles. The Torrens Titles Act, I think it was 1848, is when people started surrendering the allodial title to the state in exchange of title guarantee. So that's the biggest con job ever. So anybody, the problem with allodial titles was that you have to have a chain of title, unbroken chain of title that gets tested by the solicitors before you settle. And if you haven't got the unbroken chain of title, you couldn't sell the property. So then the act was introduced. I can't remember the exact year. It was introduced that you get the guarantee of title if you surrender the title to the state, but you no longer get the title. You are only getting certificate of title, and that's where you become tenants, joint tenants, or tenants in common. So basically, the states have now own all the land, and you only a tenant. And it's got a guarantee of title so strong that even if the title has been obtained fraudulently, the buyer still has the guarantee of title. So if the bank repossesses the property and sells it from under you, they have the guarantee of title. Does that make sense? I'm a property valuer, so I know a little bit about it. I'm done. Oh, one more thing. I wanted to know about where do we get that self-executing contract template or sample?
Well, you get that through diligent hours of toil and trouble dealing with Rick Swift on a Zoom meeting. And myself, perhaps.
There's one in UCC. Is that the same sort of thing?
Nothing can be the same as what Rick produces.
Oh.
So what we tend to do is we work outside their standard format because we're outside their standard format.
Right.
So,
Okay.
but if you talk to Rick, I'm sure Rick would be happy to talk to you. And then if you want to, you could work on it together. Because it's actually an evolving process.
Right.
Rick and I have just been working on a document just recently, and we've changed a number of the terms that we use because
Right.
we're looking to gradually build things into more of a correct sentence structure. But we also realise that we have to use statutes to move statute bodies. So we have to use the language that they use. But with some of these things that we do, we actually want somebody to question what we're doing so that we can explain the fraud in what they're doing. So it depends what you want to do.
Well, I want to learn about it. So can you send me a sample where you are right now, and I'll.
How about we get Agent Swift, or if you contact Agent Swift?
Agent Swift.
Yes, he's right there. If you put him in the chat box.
Yeah.
And if he trusts you, he might give you his phone number.
Agent Swift, is that Jim?
No, that's Rick. He's there as Agent Swift.
Agent Swift, all right.
Yeah, up under the A's. So we good there, Boris?
Yeah. Thank you very much for giving it the time, and I hope it made sense. My little.
Oh, no, it makes a lot of sense, mate. I think that you're invaluable.
Oh, thank you.
So we're going to. That's what I'm trying to do. Is I'm trying to tie you up with Agent Swift so we can use you. Utilize you.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank
you. Can I tell you where the load of your title is?
Thanks.
I think Crown's asking you a question there, Boris.
Yeah.
Can I show you where the load of your title is? Okay, I'll tell you where it is.
Yeah, I'm familiar with what it looks like. It's a stack of documents that goes for generations.
Here's the load of your title. Confer estates and fee simple of land held by the Crown, whether in a lodium or otherwise.
Oh, I didn't
Only
know.
the Crown has the lodial title, people. The estate and fee simple of land held by the Crown. The name on the certificate of title is the estate and fee simple of land. That's the only thing that gives the value to that certificate. And it's held by the Crown yourself. So in that scenario there, your birth certificate, the name on the birth certificate is the estate and fee simple that goes on to the certificate of title to that land that you purchased in relation to that property that's been rated. But you hold the title in a lodium.
That's an interesting twist.
That's the twist here. Now, you will only find that. Now, this is in relation to all Crown land. Everyone's fighting for the land that they have purchased, but they haven't got title to the land that's in the name on the birth certificate. They're holding it, but only the Crown can exercise the lodial title. So you only see that in 5X in New Zealand.
Right.
The House Sector Transfer Act is where they transfer all assets, liabilities and rights and all those estates and fee simple land held by the Crown and allodium. And what comes with that is the Crown Minerals Act. So your body is made up of minerals. And check this one out. This is the title to your body, your land, the placenta that you were born in. It's a bit of a, oxymoron. Which land are you referring to? Here we are here. It's called Crown land. Means all land held in allodium by or the fee simple title to which is vested in the Crown. It's true, you already own it, but you haven't claimed it as the Crown. Whether by virtue of Crown prerogative, because the Crown came out first in time, best in law, operation of law, any enactment or any deed or instrument. Land alienated by a lease or license. That's that is stating fee simple. That's why you got to be the Crown.
So, Boris, if some of us were to specialise in certain areas, is it possible that you'd be able to specialise in people being able to claim their land back as Crown? Because you've got a wealth of knowledge and you know how to navigate in that area. So that might be a work group coming up if you're up to it.
Yeah.
I'm not asking you to commit now. It's just a thought. It's just a thought.
I would consider it, but.
But if you want a source of reference, check out the legislation in New Zealand, because New Zealand is connected to Australia, and a lot of the enactments here are actually dovetailing with the acts in Australia.
So tell me, Crown, have you ever found certain chain of words, like a little phrase, and then taken that phrase and gone to another jurisdiction to see if that phrase is somewhere within their acts and statutes?
The wording is slightly different. They use different wording, but the concept's still the same.
Okay.
I'll give you an example.
I tell you what I might do, Crown, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Is that I don't want to keep you up forever, and it is it's like 12 minutes to midnight where you are, and I've got a few people with questions, so we might just go there. At the risk of missing out on something important, but I'm sure we can get back to it. So I just ask for Rasmira to unmute yourself, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm just thinking about this link I think Rick shared. The lady, her baby was taken away. What if we put our heads around that and swim through this sea of paper and address the issue, like 13 crowns joining together and addressing the authority, and just like to test the system, how could that work, you know, and you know, it's a really good, I mean, what could be a better cause? It's a mom that just got a baby. It's like a God sign that, and we just saw it, you know, we can put our heads around that and work through this sea of paper with the cause. We're gonna learn a lot, and we're gonna as well test the system.
So you're asking people to join you, Russ, to do that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, but
Thank
we
you
would
very
need we would need definitely you, Stephen, and we would need Crown. We would need Nelson. You know, I couldn't do it because I'm still learning. I'm finding my way and putting my head around this, you know. And he knows like where to look. I took all the screenshots, what he was talking about, how you find, you know, the paper that's binding the certain situation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll put this to you, that if we put in the groundwork for identifying the legislation and the different acts that apply in this situation, that we think about that as much as we can and how we apply it, then we put it to Crown to vet it. Because
sounds great.
Very busy.
Sounds great. Let's do it. This is very scary. This is horrible, and this is what I was afraid that's gonna start to happen, you know, already 6 months ago when I saw what they're doing, you know, with the legislation and how the human rights are stripped away, you know, and now it's happening. Now the shit, sorry for the rough word, is getting real. And let's get real. We need to get real now. So I'm just wondering, if we always talk about numbers, we have enough numbers. We should appreciate what we have now. I think we have amazing knowledge behind. We need to utilize it now, and through utilizing it for this cause, we're going to learn so much, and we're going to set a precedent now, because they are moving fast. Let's move fast.
Right,
that's my idea.
We'll put this together, and then we can present it to the group, and if needed, I can even send an email out to everybody outside of the normal meeting arrangement, if we want to get people on board to authorise it as well. So, but we'll run it past Crown. So we'll get it organised with as many people want to join, and use it as a learning experience, and we'll get a result. So I'm just going to push through. Thanks for bringing that up. Kath.
Yes, there's a lot of projects happening, and I have a project too as a carer in the unity sort of sector of life. All the people like that lady that Rashmir just brought up, I'd like to ring the police station and just do a welfare check, because the last person I did a welfare check on, just because I felt like it, they hadn't been fed for 12 hours, had no water or food for 12 hours, and were just let out to walk home miles and miles in bare feet. So, you know, I was pretty concerned about this lady, and I'm pretty concerned about all the normal people that might be in that situation. So I'd just like to ask if anyone can put it out there, if you're speaking to people, that if they do a live, can they please state the police station, and that just putting the phone on the badge isn't enough. My eyes aren't great, so if they can state the officer's name as they go around with the phone or whatever aloud, so I can hear it and write it down, and then I can be on my way doing my own thing. And I also recommend, if anyone else, you know, there's a lot of that stuff happening, so if anyone, other carers out there just interested, anyone can do it.
Okay, so that's very good, Kath. That's very, very good. And there'd be some people wouldn't have thought of that. So when people are doing these live things, to make the information clear so that anybody watching can take action if they want to.
Yes, yes.
You know, that's a great message. That's a great message. Thank you very much for that.
Okay, now I just want to go through, I've taken a lot of notes. There's a lot happening. Andy sounds like he needs a work group, he and Mark, because they've got to keep ahead
Andy
of the
definitely
game.
needs a work group, but he's got some issues to deal with too.
And a fellow called Teromite, that
Yes.
is here tonight, mentioned about linking some site with these people. I just have to say that be the link.
Oh, Tony might, yeah.
For you. Is that it? Tony might. My eyes are going on me. But and Ivan had a project that was really important to him. So don't forget Ivan.
No, we won't forget. We won't forget Ivan.
Anyway, I will end on. We started by the people, for the people, or whatever it is. But I think that we might end on by the crown, for the crown.
Yeah, no, that's well said, Kath.
Yeah.
So I'm going to
Anyway,
accelerate through. We got 5 minutes left, but you've actually said something that's so basic and so obvious that I bet you 90% of people hadn't have thought of, and that's about getting that information clearly so that members of the audience can take some action. Thank you very much.
Yes. Oh, and Boris, I'm interested in Crown land. I don't know that I'd be much help. Or was it Boris?
Yeah.
That was into that? Yeah, I'm interested in that. Whoever's on Crown land.
Okay.
I'd like to be in that chat. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
That's it. Bye.
That's all recorded. Judith.
Thank you. Can I change my signature to Crown on past documents?
Well, as long as they're still within reach.
Well, I'm thinking like the bank and driver's license.
Yes, you can. I've changed mine, and I'll go and change it again, and I use my punctuated name, and that's something which I've done that on my credit cards and that sort of thing, and I even signed paperwork or autographed paperwork with the bank using full colon Stephen hyphen Mark full colon space Limbry full stop, and if I want to now, I could do it as Crown. So yes, you can change it at any time. The only thing you want to make it as a change in time from a point and then stick to it, because if you start using multiple names, it can be assumed that you're doing that for the purpose of committing some sort of a fraud.
Okay, so do you sign as Crown or do you sign as Stephen /
yeah, well,
whatever / lumbering?
Yeah, with the punctuation. That's what I was doing, but now with new knowledge, and that's the beauty of having no real agenda, is that you can alter your position because of new knowledge that you've acquired. So I'll be different tomorrow than I was today because of tonight. So, and I'll be looking to do that, which is we look at grandfathering our documents, which just means that as you gain more knowledge, you update your documents to your current state of knowledge. I'd actually suggest to you that it would be remiss of you not to do that.
Yes.
So.
Thank you. Yes, I'm getting the hang of it.
Yeah, no, you're right.
One little millimetre at the moment.
Don't underestimate your power.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Stephen.
No worries. Thank you. And Boris.
Yes, I just wanted to ask the question that I asked last time of the Crown, but he disappeared. So you remember at the end of the presentation, you were showing an act which explains about sovereignty and the reasons that different islands had different conditions, if you like. But New Zealand was the one that had sovereignty because they signed a treaty. They weren't conquered or occupied. And it says in the act that you were showing that the Commonwealth would, or whoever it was, would be paying you for your sovereignty, you as a nation, until such time as you can produce the leaders that can run the country, and then the payments would stop. And they will surrender the sovereignty back to you. Have you done any thinking in that direction at all? Surely there would be some capable New Zealanders that can run the country. It's there in the Act.
Yeah, it's there, and we just had a conversation today, and it's based around the flag jurisdiction.
Yeah.
When we on the other conversation that Stephen mentioned at the beginning, you could have a look at that. Everything was vested in the flag as the instrument of title under the company's jurisdiction, and they created two subsidiaries through the two other flags, one being the Royal Ensign, which is the land, and the other being the national flag, which represents the commercial arm. So there's a small group, and I've had a conversation, especially in relation to when John Keys tried to had that referendum to change the flag. That's how important the jurisdiction is. Those three flags is what controls the whole world. The declaration came after that. The treaty itself is a nullity, but it's our own people that are trying to enforce something that's not even valid, to everyone's detriment. So yes, we are working on that. It's just isolating all the individuals that haven't got any understanding of what's going on in that regard. Expecting you guys to.
Yeah.
But on the individual level, there were events that took place at the hospital that the parents are not aware of, and it's to do with the title to that Crown land. And if I just shared the one document, and maybe the lady who was a midwife, or someone who worked in the hospital during the birthing ward, might be able to corroborate this document. And I'll just, where is it? Oh, here it is here. This document is what the hospital filled in within the first 48 hours that the parents didn't know about. And it's the notification of birth versus the registration of birth. Now, it only identifies if it was a male, female child, but it has no name on it. That's where they claim the child. That's why they can take the child off the mother. It's because of this one document.
Mm-hmm.
So in regards to having this document available and knowing that the hospital fills it in, anyone that's involved in a birth, make sure that they are informed that this document exists and stick the crown on it.
That makes sense. I don't know. Oh, can you hear me or not?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. If you look at the that makes sense, but if you look at the birth certificate and look at the issue, the word issued, and it says issued by mother. If you interpret the word correctly, it is issued by mother for sale.
For sale.
For sale, yeah. Have a look at the issue, the word definition of the word issue. So your father informs on you that you are dead, and your mother issued you, whether you're alive or not, your mother issued you for sale.
Yep. You can only just got to think about where issued is used in other contexts.
Exactly.
And what you're saying makes perfect sense. Another one of those obvious things that people don't.
You got to look at every word. That's just, I just realized that. Every word.
And I can articulate on the word issuer and issued too. It's financial instruments and financial products.
Is sued.
I can found that, and I can show you in legislation what that means. They're trading the issue. And in the Income Tax Act, it's the original bill of exchange, the source, under the source rule. Bill of exchange.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So that's your initial bill of exchange.
Yes, the initial bill of exchange was issued, and they're trading it. Financial Market Conduct Authority.
So I bet you there's a part 2 to that story.
It's a long story, and I can articulate the whole process of that whole.
So what I suggest is that we tune in next week, same bat time, same bat channel, and we'll pick up part 2 of the original issue.
Yes.
With the birth certificate or the notification of birth as being the original bill of exchange, and we'll pick up from there. Is that okay, Crown?
Yes, that's good. But go and address that to the hospital, that there's a document that they fill in, and that's where they're claiming the children.
Okay.
Trafficking in children.
Yes.
Okay.
Rightio. Well, thank you very much for coming along and being so generous with your time. And there are a couple of people that I missed out on this evening, and I think a couple of them are gone. I apologise for that. But the information that we've got is quite complex and took a long time to go through, and you are very generous with your time, Crown. Thank you so much. So we'll be here next week. We'll be on tomorrow night. Not sure exactly what with, but that's Mark's problem. I'm just hosting. So, but we'll see if I can generate something for tomorrow night. I've got something in mind. We'll see how that goes. Thanks for everybody that's participated, and we've got a couple of projects to work on. So let's make sure we connect with those. So thank you very much, and I shall end the meeting. Good night, and see you next week. Bye bye.
Bye bye.